Detective Comics 1101, Tom Taylor writing with MIKEL JANÍN on the art. So, start of a new arc this issue, because we wrapped up that previous one with Bullock and Penguin, and then had the big milestone, like, sort of standalone issue. So, yeah, I mean, I thought this was a very good first issue of this arc. It was intriguing, it was mysterious, it set up something that was kind of spooky, and gave Batman a mystery to solve, and then, well, it's still Janinen on art who's been on the book. I feel like his colouring on this issue was going for a very different kind of vibe, and I was really feeling that throughout this.
Yeah, it's a lot of the greens, right? And a lot of the stuff on the boat.
Greens and purples.
So it gives it almost like, which is apparent in this, when we get to the story, gives it kind of a sickly look, right? With this green and purple going over it. But, the coloring really makes it pop too. Because we all know Yanin's art's, very, very good. Here, I feel like it went to a next level because there's some character to it. Not that there wasn't always character, but, like you said, it's going for a vibe.
Yeah, and obviously the opening scene, there's not much context for at the start, although looking at it again now that I've read the whole issue, I'm getting a vibe of what this actually is. Although it still says then, which implies the past, even though I feel like it's actually foreshadowing the future based on where this book ends. But that's open for debate. We'll find out where everything goes. But the opening scene is this sort of monstrous version of Batman breaking into a house and grabbing this guy who's telling his son that everything's going to be okay. But the main story of the issue is that this party boat off the coast of Gotham, just a bunch of people drinking and doing whatever, freak out because not only does a giant container ship, hit up against them, there's also floating bodies in the water, and it turns out everyone in this ship is dead. So we get kind of like the Demeter arriving in England sort of issue where Batman goes on the ship. He gets there first before the authorities. He helps out the party boat quickly. Gets the bat plane to autopilot, drag their boat back to shore.
Yep.
He investigates the ship and immediately is confronted with a bunch of stuff. He gets Oracle on the line who's watching through his visor. So they're kind of discussing it as they're going, but he's pointing out there's a lot of weird things here. Okay, there's a bunch of dead bodies, but they're all dead at different times, which is kind of weird, because why would the earlier ones be left out on deck like this if it wasn't a sudden thing that killed them all? And some of them have very specific injuries where it kind of felt like it's like he's jumped off the mast, but his arms aren't broken, which implies that he didn't try and break his fall. He just landed head first without any kind of signs of trying to protect himself. Just all these details that are kind of weird. It's like, okay, this is genuinely quite mysterious. I don't know where this is going yet, and it's that made it quite fun and kind of eerie, I think, for a lot of the issue.
No, there's an eerie vibe because all the life vests are still there, right?
Yes.
Even the children's ones, and it doesn't look like there should have been doesn't look like the boat was in distress except for all the dead bodies littered everywhere. The boat's old and dilapidated, but it's still sailing fine, so it doesn't look like it was under any danger or attack, it gets Batman's gears going. Like, what is going on?
Yeah, no hull damage or anything like that, and obviously Batman's in his blue cape in that now, so the detectives also adopted the new outfit from Batman issue 1, so a bit of synergy there. Anyway, and the art is gorgeous here, like when he's diving off the bat plane initially down to the party boat, because one woman gets knocked overboard on the party boat, and he dives down and saves her. That's kind of a fun moment. When he's going onto the boat and you get that full page spread of all the bodies. I think it always feels really dark when Batman's encountered with a lot of dead bodies, because he goes out of his way so much to not kill. It's a big part of his character. So when he's confronted with, there's murder victim. Well, I mean, they may not be murdered, but maybe they are, maybe they aren't. We don't know yet. But seeing all these dead bodies, it feels like it hits hard in a Batman story because of how much he tries to avoid death at all costs.
Yeah, and just the way that that full page spread, right? And there's just a little text box that says I count 41 bodies, right? So it's just this very, dour kind of moment for him.
And that's before he's even went below deck to check out the rest of the ship. So, he gets Oracle involved, and she's like debating stuff here. And of course, once he starts looking at the various things and he goes in, they notice cameras on the boat. They notice cameras that are watching them, and they're starting to sort of go. And they point out specifically that these cameras seem far too high tech for what the rest of the ship is. This is a bit more suspicious, a bit more intriguing. But Batman finds a young boy who's still alive, although when he finds him sitting there playing a video game, he's very, very sick looking. And ultimately, like, it doesn't take too long for Batman to put on his little kind of like protective gas mask covering, or whatever you want to call it, on his mouth guard. But part of me was instantly thinking, wait, if this is some kind of infection, some kind of outbreak that's caused all these deaths, Batman has just kind of shown up here. Now, not that he could have really known, like there was no way for him to be aware of this, but as soon as he's looking at this sick kid with the kid's eyes all looking kind of red, I'm like, oh, there's a good chance he might be sick already. But there's a big thing on the wall saying the fear will end Gotham, your courage is coming, and it's credited to or signed by the Lion. So that, I think that's a new villain we're teasing, because I don't think I can think of anyone that goes by the Lion. So that's cool. But I do like that Batman does cover his face once he realizes this is some sort of disease or virus. But of course he's already been hanging around for a bit, so it does kind of feel like, you know. So the speculation between him and Oracle is like, wait, is this some kind of like first controlled experiment, and that's why there's these cameras everywhere to you know, assess what's happening? Because basically what they realize is that this virus is like taking away their fear, right? But to a detrimental point, because fear is a good thing to a point. It's what tells you to stop doing something because it'll hurt you and that kind of thing. These self-preservation. Yeah. These people all had that removed, so they didn't care that they were dying. They didn't care that something bad happened to them or was going to happen to them. So they just kind of accepted death and didn't care about it. So there's something I could compare it to, but it's a spoiler for the thing I'd compare it to, so I won't do it. But something that springs to mind.
Well, and just with the idea of the lion, and that a lion usually represents courage and no fear, right? And then, like in Wizard of Oz, that's why the cowardly lion, you know, stands out, because it's this lion without courage, you know. So it's like, what is this guy doing? Like, is this you know, what type of experiment is he running? Is he trying to remove all fear? Which, if that's the case, it's like the opposite of Scarecrow, right? You know, this is the guy that's trying to remove fear instead of instill fear. So, you know, quite a different type of vibe for Batman to go against. Yeah, but it also works very thematically with Batman, since Batman is very much all about instilling fear. But he points out that, you know, in the narration at the start, there's a little bit about him saying, oh, you know, but I want to take fear away from the regular people of Gotham. I want them to feel safe going out at night. But on nights like this, when the mist rolls in, it's hard to not feel a little bit scared. So, but I mean, what this is teasing is this idea of this villain wants to make everyone just completely... I mean, and here's the question, like, it seems like everyone was getting sick and dying here anyway, so, like, it takes away fear, but it seems like it's also killing them too. Like, you know, it's not like all the deaths are all because they all suffered injuries. It seems like they all just died at some point or another. I don't know if they're all just related to the fact that they're not feeling fear. I mean, the kid does look genuinely sick, you know, when we see his face and all that. So, you know, anyway, it's a very intriguing plot. Batman goes to Mr. Terrific to get, like, you know, a sciencey head on the case, and he confirms a few things. And the cliffhanger is him saying, sorry, Batman, but you are infected. So, again, aside from the fact that the opening said then, implying it took place in the past, so I don't understand that part of it. But this feels like, to me, Batman might become this Batman who doesn't feel fear kind of thing. Yeah? Or do you think that's when he says he wants to make people feel safe and not, like, the regular people not being afraid of him? Is that just a thematic, like, this is how he appeared to that kid, you know, then, right? Like, Batman was this big, scary monster coming in to get his dad. Yeah, I mean, I can see that. I feel like it feels more than a thematic thing, though. It feels like we saw that scene for more of a reason. And I wonder how it's all going to tie into that. Because part of me's thinking if he doesn't feel fear, that he'll get more bold and he'll actually become scarier to everyone, is kind of what I was
thinking.
Yeah.
Because of course Batman's going to be like, oh, I'm just going to leave. Like once he realizes he's not contagious, he's probably just going to leave. And how does Batman operate if he himself can't feel fear? Obviously, yeah, there's this idea that Batman's not a scared character typically, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't feel any fear. Doesn't mean that it doesn't help him deduce things or assess situations. Does he get careless? Does he stop caring? Because like one of the things that he probably fears when he's doing stuff is fearing like an innocent person will get hurt in the crossfire. If he doesn't fear that, then does someone get hurt because he doesn't care?
Right. And that takes his caution away and it makes him more reckless, right? And a reckless Batman isn't, good for anybody. Think about all the stuff that he does, all the devices that he has with the bat plane. Like he programmed the bat plane to tug that boat in. If he's just flying that thing around the city, completely reckless, it's not good, again, not good for anybody.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, out of this is the third arc that Taylor's done in Detective, and I've enjoyed the other arcs for the most part. Maybe a couple of nitpicks here or there. This is definitely the one that feels like the most intriguing plot-wise, where I'm like, oh, this is instantly very interesting what you're doing here. Plus, with all the atmosphere that this issue has as well, with the the creepiness of checking out the boat when it arrives and all that. I mean, I really enjoyed all that stuff.
And it really speaks to Taylor what he's interested in telling with Batman, because the first arc was about his mortality, right? Now he's getting older. And the whole elixir thing with him, turning back the clock of aging. Now it seems to be more of his mental status of like, well, is it okay to traumatize the city as I do? Right now he's starting to have doubts, and that he wanted to change that. Right, he wants to be more open. So I do like that Taylor's like taking these typical tropes of Batman and exploring it through Bruce's eyes.
Now, I'm curious to see where they go with this. I mean, I think this first issue was really great, but obviously it's not all going to be creepy searching ships for the rest of the arc. It's going to evolve into whatever we're doing next with Batman in this condition. But I do think there's a lot of potential there to kind of explore that and see, in some ways, like, removing fear also removes the fear of Batman for the criminals, and that's maybe something we can also play with.
Right.
So, that's maybe a tool been taken away from him in a weird place. That's assuming the city itself gets infected. Although I assume if that happens, there will be a cure by that point, because we're not going to kill the whole city, obviously.
Yeah, and again, with all of the, like the disease-like structure of it too, it adds a ticking clock, right? Because Batman still has this thing.
Yeah,
right?
I obviously, there's going to be some kind of cure before Batman dies, right? That's just obvious.
Oh, yeah. But it just adds to that, that pressure situation of him, like, of it, because he has it too. So, but yeah, no, it was really good. And again, the Janín's art here, when it shifts even back to like Mr. Terrific's lab, all the color changes. There's a lot of more, harsh reds and all of that too. So, he's just really, really playing with what I expect out of Janín's art.
And obviously red typically means danger, and the fact that he's getting this bad news at the end kind of fits with that. No, I mean, I think, credit where it's due for the art feeling a little bit different to the previous arcs, despite it still being Janín, and not in a bad way. It feels like it's intentionally going for kind of a more atmospheric, creepy vibe than it was before because of what the story is, and that seems like a valid choice to me. So, no, good stuff. What are you giving Detective Comics?
I'm gonna give this a straight 8.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to at least 8.5. I could even stretch to the 9, but I think I'll be conservative and say 8.5. But I do think it goes above that straight 8. I think I really liked it. I think it's one of my favorite issues that Taylor's done on Detective so far.